Two people work the same 10 hours. One stays broke. One gets richer. What separates them isn't effort. It isn't intelligence. It isn't even luck. What separates them is something most people never see, because they've been trained not to look for it. If you keep chasing the idea that working harder will set you free, you'll spend your entire life exhausted and still begging for scraps. So watch closely. One person sells their time. The other owns the pipe that money flows through. Same sweat, different winner. Picture a warehouse at 2:17 in the morning. Fluorescent lights hum overhead. Cold concrete under steel toe boots. Two men dragging the same heavy boxes onto the same pallet. Same back pain. Same sweat soaking through their shirts. Same 10-hour shift grinding down their spines. One of them goes home and sleeps like a stone, because his body has nothing left. The other goes home and can't sleep. His mind won't stop circling the same question. If hard work is the answer, why do I feel more trapped every year? That question is the beginning of intelligence. Not motivation, intelligence. Because the system you're working inside was not built to reward the person who suffers the most. It was built to reward the person who controls where value must pass through. So here's the first loop I want you to hold open in your mind. If effort doesn't create wealth, then what does money actually follow? Most people believe the rich are rich because they're smarter or luckier, or they hustled harder than everyone else. That's the story the world sells you, because it keeps you obedient. It keeps you running on the wheel. The truth is quieter and colder. Money follows whoever can claim the toll booth. Let me make that real. A man in Nairobi starts a small trucking business with one truck. He drives it himself, loads it himself, negotiates deals himself. For the first year, he's proud because he's finally his own boss. Then the truck breaks down. He loses 2 weeks of work. The clients don't care. They call someone else. He pays for repairs. He pays for fuel. He pays bribes at checkpoints. He pays for tires. He pays for insurance. He pays for everything. And at the end of the month, after all that motion, his profit is thinner than the paper the invoices are printed on. So he assumes the answer is obvious. He needs a second truck. More effort, more grinding, bigger hustle. That sounds right until you look at the man who never touches a steering wheel. There's another man in the same city who doesn't own trucks at all. He owns relationships. He knows the procurement manager at a cement company. He knows the delivery schedules. He knows when the orders spike. He knows which routes get blocked by weather or politics. He knows which drivers are desperate for work. He doesn't move cargo. He moves information. And because he controls the flow of jobs, he takes a small cut from every delivery that passes through him. He sits in a chair. His phone rings. Money lands. The first man is pushing the truck. The second man is controlling the pipe the truck must enter to get paid. Same industry, same economy, same demand, different position. Now here's the head fake. If you're like most people, you'll say, yeah, but that broker is just a parasite. Good. Hold that anger for a second. Because the point isn't to moralize. The point is to see the rule. The broker can be good or evil. It doesn't matter. The system rewards his position, not his virtue. If you miss this, you'll misbuild your life. You'll spend your best years trying to become valuable, while someone else quietly owns the lane your value must drive through. So what does money follow? Maybe it follows ownership. Fine. But ownership of what? Because you can own a truck and still be broke. You can own a shop and still be trapped. You can own a business and still feel like an employee wearing a different uniform. So don't grab the first answer that makes you comfortable. Let's go shopper. Money follows leverage. Leverage is any advantage that makes your effort multiply without your body being present. And there are only a few kinds that matter. But before I give you the categories, you need to feel the trap. Because most people aren't poor because they don't work. They're poor because they work inside someone else's machine. A woman cuts hair in a small shop. Good hands, fast hands. 10 clients a day. She's booked out. Everyone calls her successful. But here's what her day actually looks like. She arrives early, cleans, sets up, smiles, performs, talks, sells, stays late, counts cash, goes home. Her income is trapped inside her calendar. If she gets sick, money stops. If she travels, money stops. If she has a baby, money stops. She is not running a business. She is renting her own body to her own schedule. Now here's the misdirection that keeps her stuck. She thinks the solution is more clients. She thinks she needs more demand, more followers, more marketing, better branding. But watch what happens when a platform walks into her world. An app launches in her city. It promises more bookings. It promises exposure. It promises to fill empty slots. So she signs up. Why not? She's working anyway. At first it feels like a win. New customers arrive. Then she notices something. The app starts raising its commission a little at a time. Quiet, like a tax. The customers don't belong to her. They belong to the platform. And the platform can reroute them any time. It can promote another stylist above her. It can hide her listing unless she pays. It can change the rules with one update. Here's the uncomfortable part. She thought she was buying growth. She was actually handing over the pipe. Because the platform doesn't cut hair. It doesn't sweat. It doesn't stand for 10 hours. But it owns the flow of customers. So it takes a cut of every haircut that passes through it. And now her hard work is paying someone else's leverage. Same sweat, different winner. So when you say money follows leverage, I don't want you to hear a motivational slogan. I want you to see a toll booth, a bottleneck, a gate, a pipe. Because that's what leverage really is. Control over a pathway other people must use. And once you see this, you start noticing it everywhere. The landlord who owns the building takes rent, whether you had a good month or not. The distributor who controls shelf space gets paid even if the brand goes viral. The franchise owner collects royalties while employees argue with customers. The music publisher earns from a song long after the singer's voice is gone. The person with the audience earns while the person with the skill begs. And if you're still clinging to effort, here's the brutal part. Effort is the cheapest ingredient in the economy. Because billions of people can do it. That's why the market doesn't reward it. The market rewards what is rare. And what is rare is not hard work. What is rare is position, control, access, distribution, ownership of demand. So let's pin the main question to the wall, because everything in this video will orbit it. If money doesn't follow effort, what does it follow? In a moment, I'm going to show you the 3 forces that create the pipe in real life, whether you're broke, middle class, or quietly rich. And one of them will make you angry, because it proves you were trained to build someone else's empire. But first, you need one more story. Because if you think this only happens in business, you're still asleep. Watch what happens inside a normal job. A man works at a factory that produces bottled water. Not the fancy kind. The kind that sells for cheap and gets bought in bulk. He clocks in at 7 in the morning every day. Same gray uniform. Same cap. Same noise in the background that slowly eats your hearing. His job is simple. He stands beside a conveyor belt and checks the seals. If a cap is loose, he pulls it. If the label is crooked, he pulls it. The belt never stops. His arms keep moving. His eyes keep scanning. He's good at it. And because he's good at it, he gets rewarded. Not with wealth, with more responsibility. He becomes the reliable one. So now when someone is late, he covers. When the supervisor needs an extra shift filled, they call him first. When the machine jams, he stays. When the truck is delayed, he waits. He's the hardest worker in the building. Now hold this question. If the world is fair, shouldn't he be the one getting rich? Watch what happens next. The company announces a new contract. A big retailer wants them to produce double volume for the next 6 months. Everyone celebrates. Overtime, more hours, more opportunity. He hears the news and calculates the best-case scenario in his head. If he takes all the overtime, maybe he can finally pay off his debt. Maybe he can finally fix the roof. Maybe he can finally breathe. And then quietly, the real winner walks into the room. Not the CEO, not the supervisor, a man you never see on the factory floor. The distributor, the guy who controls the trucks, the routes, the relationships with the retailer, the ability to deliver on time. This distributor doesn't touch a bottle. But the retailer doesn't care how hard the factory workers sweat. The retailer cares about one thing: reliable delivery. So the distributor sets terms. He doesn't negotiate with effort. He negotiates with position. He takes a cut per unit moved, a small cut multiplied by millions of units. And while the factory workers celebrate overtime, the distributor celebrates scale. This is the part most people refuse to accept. The people who touch the product are not the people who own the flow. And money follows the flow. Now here's the head fake. You'll hear this and think, so the answer is to become a distributor, to become a middleman. No. The answer is to own a bottleneck. Distribution is one kind of bottleneck, yes, but it's not the only one. Because if you chase being the middleman without understanding the underlying rule, you'll just become another worker in a different costume. The rule is deeper. Money follows whoever has leverage over demand and delivery. Demand is who wants it. Delivery is how it gets to them. Effort is only who does the work. Effort is replaceable. Demand and delivery are not. Now let's tighten the loop. If money follows leverage, what creates leverage? There are 3 forces that create the pipe. And once you see them, you can map any rich person to one of these forces in under 10 seconds. Force 1, access to demand. Force 2, control of distribution. Force 3, ownership of the rules. Most people spend their entire life improving their effort and never touch these 3 forces, which is why they stay trapped. Let me show you Force 1 in a way you can't forget. A woman sells traditional clothing in a local market. She works hard. She's there early. She stands all day. She negotiates. She smiles. She deals with thieves. She deals with slow days. She deals with rain. She deals with stress. She sells enough to survive. Across town, another woman sells the same clothing. Same suppliers, same product, same city. But she sells through a wedding planner. That's it. She isn't better. She isn't more hard-working. She just attached herself to a pipeline of demand. Every time the wedding planner gets a client, there's a guaranteed need for outfits, gifts, accessories. And because the wedding planner controls the client relationship, the wedding planner controls the recommendations. So the second woman isn't chasing customers. Customers are delivered to her. She made one strategic connection, and it replaced years of hustle. Access to demand. That's Force 1. And if you're paying attention, you're starting to see something cold. The world is not divided into workers and lazy rich people. It's divided into people who chase demand and people who are plugged into demand. If you're chasing demand, you're prey. If demand comes to you, you are protected. Now Force 2. Control of distribution. This is the one that creates quiet fortunes. A man imports electronics, not a big brand, just reliable products. Phone cases, chargers, cheap earphones, power banks. He doesn't sell them to customers. He sells them to small shops. And he isn't rich because he has good products. He's rich because he owns the route. He knows which shop owners pay on time. He knows which neighborhoods sell faster. He knows which items move and which items die on shelves. He knows how to get goods through customs without losing his mind. He knows the trucking guys. He knows the storage spots. He knows the rhythm. That knowledge is a distribution network. And the distribution network is a pipe. Now here's the misdirection. If you look at him from the outside, you'll say he's just hustling. He's just working. But pay attention to what happens over time. His effort stays the same. His network expands. His leverage increases. Eventually, he can do less and earn more because the pipe is doing the work. While the shop owner is trapped behind a counter all day, the distributor's network moves money while he sleeps. Force 2. Now Force 3 is the one that makes people uncomfortable. Ownership of the rules. This is when you're not just inside the system. You influence how the system operates. If you miss this, you'll misbuild your life because you'll keep trying to win a game whose rules you don't control. Here's a simple example. A man opens a small food store. He sells something popular: grilled meat, fresh bread, tea. People love it. It's busy. Then the city changes licensing rules. Suddenly he needs new permits, new inspections, new fees, new paperwork, new bribes, new approvals. His profit collapses. Now somewhere else, another man with the same stall doesn't panic because he has a cousin in the licensing office, or he has relationships with the inspectors, or he is part of an association that influences the rules. He doesn't work harder to survive. He navigates power. He is not operating inside the rule book. He is operating around it. This is Machiavelli's world, not because it's evil, because it's real. Power is always present, even in normal life. The poor pretend it isn't. The rich build systems around it. So now the picture should be clear. Money doesn't follow effort. Money follows leverage created by access to demand, control of distribution, and ownership of rules. And here's the dangerous part. Most people spend 10 years becoming good at a skill. Then they hand that skill to someone who already owns demand and distribution. They become a high-quality employee, a polished cog, and they wonder why they still feel small. Now I'm going to do something that will either free you or offend you. I'm going to show you the effort traps that feel productive but keep you broke. And if you're honest, you'll recognize yourself in at least 2. Because these traps are designed to keep you busy. Busy people don't rebel. Busy people don't build pipes. Busy people don't ask dangerous questions. They just work. Trap 1. Getting better at something nobody controls demand for. You can become world-class at a skill and still be poor if you don't control where the customers come from. That's why you see brilliant designers begging for clients. That's why you see talented editors working for pennies. That's why you see skilled people trapped in freelance hell. They improved effort, not leverage. Trap 2. Confusing motion with position. If you're running around all day, responding to messages, doing deliveries, doing errands, taking calls, solving problems, but you don't own demand or distribution, you're not building wealth. You're building fatigue. Trap 3. Believing loyalty will be rewarded in a system built on replacement. Companies do not love you. Markets do not care about your sacrifice if you're only paid when you show up. You are a cost, and costs get minimized. Now here's the question that matters. How do you build a pipe if you don't have money, connections, or a big platform? Because if the answer is, be born rich, you'll shut this video off. Here's the non-obvious answer. You start by building a small pipe inside a big pipe. You don't fight the system, you hijack flow. And in a moment, I'm going to give you a 4-step model you can start this week. Not theory, practical movement. To shift from effort to leverage. But first, I want you to see the most overlooked pipe in the modern world. It's not real estate. It's not factories. It's attention. Attention is the cleanest pipe ever invented because it turns human focus into currency. And it's the only pipe that can be built with almost no capital. That's why it looks unfair. Because effort is visible. Attention is invisible. A man can work 12 hours and still be poor. But a teenager can post one clip and suddenly have demand chasing him for 5 years. That doesn't mean the teenager is better. It means he got plugged into a pipe. Here's a story that makes this sickeningly clear. 2 people sell the same thing. Fitness coaching. One is a trainer in a small gym. He wakes up early. He trains people back to back. He corrects form. He writes meal plans. He answers questions at night. He's exhausted but proud because he's helping people. The other guy doesn't even have a gym. He has a phone. Every day he uploads a 20-second clip. One simple mistake that destroys your posture. One deadlift cue. One nutrition myth. One do this instead. He doesn't sound excited. He sounds certain. And in a few months, something strange happens. People begin to trust him before they ever meet him. Now the first trainer is still working 10 hours a day. The second trainer is selling programs while sitting in a chair. Same skill, different pipe. But here's the uncomfortable part. Most people hear that and immediately try to copy the second guy. They try to make content. They post. They grind. They get no views. They quit. And then they go back to worshiping effort like it's a religion. They don't realize attention is not created by trying harder. Attention is created by controlling relevance. Your content doesn't win because you worked hard on it. It wins because it hits a nerve in the viewer's mind. It enters their fear, their desire, their confusion, their ego. That's why this is Machiavellian. Because once you understand attention, you stop begging for approval. You start aiming for predictable human reactions. So let me open a loop you need to answer for yourself. If attention is a pipe, why do some people get it easily while you fight for scraps? You might think the answer is luck, or algorithm, or talent. Not exactly. The answer is positioning. Positioning is the story your audience believes about you before you speak. And the fastest way to build positioning is to consistently solve one painful problem for one type of person. That's what makes attention stick. Now let me show you the head fake. Platforms make you think you're building your own pipe. But in many cases, you're just building a room inside someone else's building. And the landlord can change the rent any time. A developer spends 2 years building a simple app. It's not revolutionary. It just solves one annoying problem for small businesses. He finally launches it in an app marketplace. For a few weeks, nothing happens. Then one day, a bigger influencer mentions it. Downloads spike. Reviews come in. Revenue starts flowing. He thinks he made it. Then he looks at the numbers and realizes something. The marketplace is taking a cut from every sale. Not once. Every time. Forever. He did the work. The platform controls the pipe. Now here's the twist. He isn't trapped because the platform takes a cut. He's trapped because the platform owns demand and distribution. If the marketplace buries his app tomorrow, he's finished. If they promote a competitor, he's finished. If they change policy, he's finished. His business is really a tenant in someone else's system. So what does a dangerous person do? He doesn't just build a product. He builds a way to reach demand directly. He builds an email list. He builds a community. He builds partnerships. He builds a name that people search for. Because the moment your demand is independent, your leverage increases. This is why audience is wealth. Not followers, not likes. Owned attention. Attention you can reach without begging a gatekeeper. If you miss this, you'll misbuild your life. You'll think you're building something big while you're actually building a nice-looking cage. Now, I promised you a quiet operator example. Because the biggest pipes aren't loud. They don't trend. They don't go viral. But they print money. A small construction company lands contracts, but the payments come late. 90 days late, sometimes more. Meanwhile, they still have to pay workers weekly. They still have to buy materials now. They still have to keep the machine running. So the owner is stressed, not because he lacks effort, because his cash flow is trapped. Then he meets a financing operator, a guy who doesn't build anything, doesn't pour concrete, doesn't carry bricks. He buys invoices. He pays the construction company up front, minus a fee. And then he collects the full amount from the client later. From the outside, it looks like nothing. From the inside, it's control of timing. And timing is a pipe, because whoever controls when money moves controls who survives. That financing operator isn't working harder. He owns a bottleneck, access to fast cash. And once he has that, everyone comes to him when they feel pressure. Pressure creates obedience. That's not inspirational. That's mechanical. So let's close the loop that's been building. Money follows leverage. Leverage comes from owning pipes. Pipes are built from demand, distribution, and rules. And attention is the modern pipe that can be built by anyone. But only if you stop thinking like a worker. Now I'm going to give you the model, not an outline, not a motivational plan. A cold 4-step process that turns effort into leverage. And you can start it this week, even if you're broke. Step 1. Stop asking, what can I do? Ask, where is demand already flowing? Because you don't create demand from scratch. Not at first. You attach yourself to a river. You look for a problem people already pay to solve. Not interesting problems, painful problems. The kind people complain about at night. The kind that makes them feel stupid. The kind that costs them money, status, or peace. That's where demand lives. Step 2. Pick the smallest door into that demand. Most people try to build a mansion. They need to build a key. A simple offer, a simple hook, a simple result. One clear promise. Not I do everything. One thing. When you do one thing clearly, you become easy to remember. Step 3. Build a repeatable asset that pulls demand to you. This is where attention becomes leverage. An asset is anything that keeps working after you stop. A piece of content that keeps getting views. A guide that keeps getting shared. A referral loop. A simple tool. A template. A system. If your business requires you to show up every time to earn, you are still selling time. You just changed the name of your job. Step 4. Turn that asset into a pipe you control. This is the part most people avoid because it feels boring. They want the thrill of creation, not the discipline of ownership. Ownership means collecting the audience somewhere you can reach them. It means building direct relationships. It means not letting platforms own your customers. Because the second you can contact demand directly, your leverage becomes real. Now here's how you measure if you're building leverage or just working more. Ask yourself 3 questions. If I stop for 2 weeks, does money still come in? If I do the same action today, does it make tomorrow easier or identical? And am I gaining control over demand, or am I still chasing it? If the answer is no, identical, and chasing, then your effort is being spent inside someone else's pipe. You're feeding a machine you don't own. Now the next story will show you the most brutal version of this. How smart, hard-working people become rich for someone else. And it happens every day in the cleanest-looking industries, because the nicest cages are the ones that look like opportunity. A young software engineer gets hired at a fast-growing startup. Good salary, smart team, nice office, free coffee. The kind of job that makes your family relax because it looks safe. He works hard. He ships features. He stays late. He fixes bugs nobody sees. He becomes the guy they trust with the most important parts of the product. One day, the CEO calls him into a meeting and says we're launching a new pricing tier. If this goes well, it changes everything. So he goes into war mode. He builds the onboarding flow. He optimizes the checkout. He improves the speed. He tests everything. He sweats, but digitally. He gives the company months of his brain. Then the launch happens, and it works. Revenue jumps. The CEO smiles. Investors clap. The company posts a graph on social media. Everyone celebrates. The engineer feels proud for about 10 minutes. Then he notices something cold. His pay didn't change. His life didn't change. The company's power changed. The company's valuation changed. The people who own the equity just got richer, while he got a great job. Here's the uncomfortable part. He thought he was building his future. He was building someone else's pipe. Because the pipe wasn't the code. The pipe was the distribution, the brand, the customer base, the partnerships, the pricing power, the ability to charge. The code was effort. Effort inside a machine. Now, I'm not saying jobs are bad. Don't be shallow. A job can be a weapon if you use it correctly. But most people don't. Most people use jobs the way a hamster uses a wheel. They run harder when they feel pressure, and they call that progress. If you miss this, you'll misbuild your life. Because you'll think I'm leveling up when you're actually becoming a more efficient resource in someone else's system. Now here's the twist that makes this useful. That engineer can escape the trap without quitting, without gambling, without fantasy. He just has to stop thinking like a worker and start thinking like a pipe builder. The difference is one question. A worker asks, what task do I do next? A pipe builder asks, what can I build once that keeps paying me? So imagine the engineer takes the exact same skills and aims them differently. Instead of building features for a product he doesn't own, he builds a tiny tool that solves one annoying problem in his industry. Something specific, something painful, something that people already complain about. He puts it in front of the exact same demand he used to serve indirectly. He writes one clear explanation, one clear demo, one clear promise. Then he attaches it to owned attention, a list, a community, partnerships, anything that doesn't vanish when an algorithm changes. Now his effort is no longer trapped inside a calendar because the tool works while he sleeps. That's leverage. That's a pipe. And notice what changed. Not his intelligence, not his work ethic, his position. Now let's go even colder, because Machiavelli's real lesson isn't be evil. It's see reality without flinching. And reality is this. The world has two types of people. People who ask permission, and people who collect permissions from others. Effort is what you do when you have no permission. Leverage is what you get when other people's actions require your permission. That's why ownership is powerful. It's permission. It's the right to say yes or no. And money follows the right to say no. Because the moment you can say no, You have bargaining power. The moment you cannot say no, you are cheap. You can be the hardest worker in the room and still be cheap if you're replaceable. That's the part no one wants to hear. So here's the final misdirection people fall for. They think the rich are rich because they work less. No, they are rich because their work is upstream. They place one lever and thousands of people push it for them. They design the rules and everyone else plays inside them. They own the road and everyone else drives on it. They own the audience and everyone else rents attention from it. They own the contract and everyone else signs it. They own the relationship and everyone else begs for referrals. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. That's the revelation stage. Not that the world is unfair, that the world is structured, and structures can be entered. The gate is not work harder. The gate is move your effort into assets that control flow. Now I'm going to hand you one challenge, not 10. One. Because most people lose their lives to complexity. They consume ideas like entertainment, then go back to their old patterns. You're not doing that. Here's your next action. In the next 7 days, pick one pipe you can realistically start building with your current life. Not the perfect pipe, the smallest pipe. A pipe is anything that sends you opportunities without you chasing them. A simple example is a relationship pipe. One person who consistently sends you leads because you solve one problem cleanly. Another is a distribution pipe. A simple channel where your ideas or offers reach the same kind of person again and again. Another is a rules pipe. A position in a group, a community, an association, a niche market where you influence what gets chosen. Choose one. Then build one asset that makes demand easier to reach. One guide, one template, one offer, one case study, one mini tool, one piece of content that answers one painful question so clearly that people feel stupid for not seeing it earlier. And when someone responds, don't just take the money and disappear. Capture the connection. That's the difference between earning and building. Earning is a transaction. Building is stacking access to demand. If you do this for 1 week, you'll feel it immediately. Not in your bank account yet, in your psychology. You'll stop feeling like you're running. You'll feel like you're placing pieces on a board. That's when you know you've crossed the line, because the moment you start building pipes, effort becomes optional. Not because you're lazy, because you're no longer trapped. And here's the final frame that should change how you see your whole life. The poor are trained to be proud of suffering. The powerful are trained to be proud of control. So every time you catch yourself bragging about how hard you worked, pause and ask one cold question. Did this effort buy me control, or did it just buy me exhaustion? If it bought you control, good. Do it again. If it bought you exhaustion, you just fed someone else's machine. Now you know why 2 people can work the same 10 hours and end in 2 different futures. One is improving effort. One is building a pipe. Same sweat, different winner. If you want the next lesson, the one that shows you how to build leverage even if you have no audience, no money, and no connections yet, subscribe. Not because it helps me, because it keeps you in the room where the real rules get spoken out loud.